This is 1-2 Order of Operations, Study Guide and Intervention, the back of the worksheet that we did in class. So as we talked about in class, evaluate means to find the answer. And when you're given a variable expression, like the ones that were given here on this page, when they ask you to evaluate, they will tell you what every variable equals. And then what you need to do is put that number in anytime you see the variable. So for all the problems that we're going to be doing, x is 2, y is 3, z is 4, a is 4/5, and b is 3/5. If you're someone who's really uncomfortable with fractions, you can change a into 0.8 by doing 4 divided by 5. And you could turn b into 0.6 by doing 3 divided by 5 on your calculator. So in the first one, we have x plus 7. X is 2, so that turns into 2 plus 7. Since there's not really any other operations other than addition, we can just do 2 plus 7 equals 9. In number 2, we have 3 times x minus 5. X is 2, so 3 times 2 minus 5. Order of operations tells us to do multiplication before subtraction. So 3 times 2 is 6, and then 6 minus 5 is 1. In number 3, we have x plus y squared. X is 2 plus y is 3 squared. Order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We don't have parentheses, but we do have exponents. So we're going to do 3 squared first. 3 squared is 9. And then the only operation left to do is addition. 2 plus 9 is 11. So x cubed is 2. X is 2 cubed plus y is 3 plus z is 4 squared. 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8, plus 3, and 4 squared means 4 times 4, which is 16. And then addition, we just move from left to right. 8 plus 3 is 11. 11 plus 16 is 27. For 5, I don't want you to have to worry about the fractions, so all we're going to do is actually just set it up. So it's not going to turn out to be a super pretty number. So 6a plus 8b, we would put in the numbers. So we would say 6 times a, which is 4/5. And when I do times a fraction, a whole number times a fraction, I typically put them in parentheses so that you can see where the 6 is being multiplied. It's by the whole fraction. And then we have 8 times b is 3/5. And again, it would be pretty easy if we were just using the decimals, but I want to be able to do things without a calculator right now. So we're just setting this one up. We're not going to solve. Okay. Same thing for 23. We're just going to set it up. We won't solve it. So 23 minus, and then in parentheses, a plus b. So 23 minus a is 4/5 plus b is 3/5. And you don't need to solve this one either. In number 7, we have y squared over x squared. So y is 3 squared over x is 2 squared. And we're going to treat each numerator and denominator separately. So we're going to do the stuff in parentheses. So 3 squared is 9, and 2 squared is 4. And we can just leave it like that. You could actually do the division, and then you would find out that it was 2.25. Whatever. Alright, number 8, we have 2 times x times y times z plus 5. So 2 times x is 2, times y is 3, times z is 4, plus 5. We don't have parentheses, we don't have exponents, we do have multiplication. So multiplication just works from left to right. So the first thing I run into, left to right, is 2 times 2, which is 4. Everything else stays the same. Next thing I run into is 3 times 4, which is 12. And the last thing for multiplication that I run into is 12 times 4, which is 48. And then since there's no more multiplication, I move on to addition, and 48 plus 5 is 53. In number 9, we have x, and then in parentheses, 2 times y plus 3 times z. X is 2, and 2 times y is 3, plus 3 times z is 4. So I have stuff in the parentheses first, and inside the parentheses I follow order of operations, so I'm going to do my multiplication first before my addition. So I'm going to have 2. The first one I run into is 2 times 3, which is 6. And then I continue moving on left to right, and the next one I run into is 3 times 4. Now that there's no more multiplication left inside, I can just add 6 plus 12, which is 18. And then I've taken care of the parentheses, and so the last thing to do is multiply 2 times 18, which is 36. In number 10, there is a fraction, but it's pretty easy to do, especially if you were to have a calculator, so we can actually do it. So we have 10 times 2, because x is 2, in parentheses squared, plus 100, and then remember I always put parentheses around a fraction if I'm multiplying it, just because it helps me out a little bit. So in parentheses, I'm going to do these things first. So 10 times 2 is 20. And then figuring out what 4 divided by 5 is, 4/5 is 0.8. And I could easily write that as times 0.8. So the next thing I do is my exponents. 20 squared is 400. Then multiply, that's this part, 0.8 of 100, or 100 times 0.8 is 80. And then the last thing is 400 plus 80 is 480. Number 11, we have 3 times x times y minus 4 all over 7x. So I'm going to do 3 times x is 2 times y is 3 minus 4. That whole thing divided by 7 times x, which is 2. I'm going to treat these as two separate things when I have a fraction like this. So I'm going to do the top, and I'm going to put it in parentheses to remind myself to do it, and then the bottom in parentheses too. So the stuff in parentheses, the first operation I do is multiplication before that subtraction. So I end up with 3 times 2, which is 6. And then on the bottom, the first thing I run into is 7 times 2, which is 14. I still have some multiplication to do on the top. 6 times 3 is 18. And then the last thing in the parentheses on the top is 18 minus 4, which is 14. And once I get a fraction to just one number over one number, then I can do it as division, and 14 divided by 14 is 1. Number 12, we're going to just set it up. So we're going to do 4/5. And since it's a fraction, we're going to put it in parentheses, squared, plus 2 times b is 3/5. And I'll put it in parentheses to remind ourselves. And you do not need to solve this one right now. Number 13, we have 7y squared minus y squared, z. In number 13, we have z squared minus y squared over x squared. So z is 4 squared minus y is 3 squared minus, or all over 2, which is x squared. And again, I'm going to put those things in parentheses to remind myself. So parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, the first operation I need to do is exponents. That's the highest. So 4 squared is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 squared is 9. 9 times 9 is 3 times 3 is 9. And on the bottom, 2 squared is 4. And then the last thing to do in the parentheses on top is 16 minus 9, which is 7, over 4. And I could do the division then, 7 divided by 4. It's going to be 1.75. But I'm also okay if you just leave it that way. Number 14, I have 6 times x times z plus 5 times x times y. So 6 times x is 2 times z is 4 plus 5 times x is 2 times y is 3. So I don't have parentheses, I don't have exponents, I do have multiplication, and I just work from left to right. First one I run into is 6 times 2 is 12. The next one I run into is 12 times 4 is 48. The next one I run into is 5 times 2, which is 10. And then the last one I run into is 10 times 3, which is 30. And once I have all my multiplication done, I can add 48 and 30. And I get 78. Number 15, I have in the parentheses z minus y squared all over x. Z is 4 minus y is 3 squared all over x is 2. So first thing I need to do is the stuff that's inside the parentheses, which is 4 minus 3. So 4 minus 3 is 1. And then 1 squared is just 1. So I have 1 half, and I could say that that is also equal to 0.5. 0.5. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. Number 16, we're just going to set up number 16. And we're going to say 25 times A, which is 4/5, times B, which is 3/5, plus Y is 3, all over X is 2, times Z is 4. You do not need to solve this one. Same thing with 17 and 18. You do not need to solve any of those, but we will set them up so that you get practice putting the values in for the variables. So we have 5 times A is 4/5 squared times B is 3/5, all over Y, which is 3. And you can leave it at that. Moving on to 18, we have Z is 4, X is 2 squared, plus A is 4/5 times X, which is 2. And you do not need to solve that. And the home stretch here, the last 3 problems, we have X over Z squared, Y over Z squared. X is 2 over Z is 4 squared, plus Y is 3 over Z is 4 squared. And you can do this 2 different ways. You can keep them as fractions, or you can do them as decimals. If you do them as decimals, you would do 2 divided by 5 is 0.5. And then 3 divided by 4 is 0.75 squared. And then you've done the parentheses, next is exponents, so 0.5 squared is 0.25. And 0.75 squared is 0.5625. And when you add those together, you get 0.8125. The other way that you can do it, will come up here, is the squared applies to both the top and the bottom. So you would have 2 squared over 4 squared plus 3 squared over 4 squared. And then we just evaluate all of the squareds. So 2 squared is 4, 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. And then when you add fractions, you add the top and leave the bottom. So we would have 13 over 16. And if you do 13 divided by 16 on your calculator, you will get 0.8125. Number 20, X plus Z. X is 2 plus Z is 4 over Y is 3 plus 2 times Z is 4. By order of operations, we do the multiplication first on the bottom. So we have 2 plus 4 on top, and then 3 plus 8 on the bottom. And then we do the addition on the top and the bottom. So we have 6 on top, 11 on the bottom, And we can leave it like that. And the last problem, we are just going to set up. We will not solve it. So z is 4 divided by x is 2 all over y is 3 plus y is 3 divided by x is 2 all over z is 4. You do not need to solve. And that is the backside of the worksheet that we did in class.